morning again, friends. Welcome to Sunday service and welcome to those joining online. Thank you. I'm reading from Rays of the One Light. These are weekly commentaries on the Bible and Bhagavad Gita with commentary written by Swami Kriya-yoga based on the teachings of Paramhansa Yogananda. This week's topic, ego, friend or foe. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. Jesus Christ begins his Beatitudes with the words, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." To be poor in spirit in such a way as to merit the kingdom of heaven doesn't mean to be poor-spirited. Rather, it means to see oneself as owning nothing, since all belongs to God, for all is a manifestation of his consciousness. St. John of the Cross wrote, "If you would own everything, seek to own nothing." That which the ego relinquishes, offering it up to soul consciousness, is reclaimed forever in cosmic consciousness. Nothing is ever lost. Paramhansa Yogananda tells the story in Autobiography of a Yogi of the levitating saint Badhuri Mahashaya. "Master," said a disciple to this saint once ardently, "you are wonderful. You have renounced riches and comforts to seek God and teach us wisdom." It was well known that Badhuri Mahashaya had forsaken great family wealth in his early childhood when single-mindedly he entered the yogic path. "You are reversing the case," the saint's face held mild rebuke. "I have left a few paltry rupees, a few petty pleasures, for a cosmic empire of endless bliss. How then have I denied myself anything? I know the joy of sharing the treasure. Is that a sacrifice? The short-sighted worldly folk are verily the real renunciates. They relinquish an unparalleled divine possession for a poor handful of earthly toys." The Bhagavad Gita in the 3rd chapter states, "All things are everywhere by nature wrought, in interaction of the qualities. The fool, cheated by self, thinks, 'This I did and that I wrought.' But ah, thou strong-armed prince, a better lessoned mind, knowing the play of visible things within the world of sense, and how the qualities must qualify, standeth aloof even from his acts. Thus through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind." Om, Om, Om.
Good morning. A few paltry rupees, a few petty pleasures, but how attached we get to all those things. As I read the news, as I guess most of us do, I am so struck by the world leaders who are trying to gain more and more power, the billionaires trying to gain more and more wealth. I just want to say, do you realize this life is very finite and you're not going to last all that much longer? You can't just spend all your time looking for money and power and greed and sense pleasures. There's not much time. Even if we live to be 100, I think the oldest person is now like 105 or something. And she's a happy little thing. I saw her. She's just living in love. And we can do that and try to give to people and share and be kind, or we can think about ourselves and get shrunk into my bank account and what I want. It's for those of us who are on the spiritual path and trying to live for God, trying to know God, trying to feel God's presence. Even if we just get a little taste, we know that it's better than the pride in the bank account or the pleasures that we get from this world that are so temporary. It's, as the beginning sentence of the autobiography says, paraphrasing, Indians have always had the search for ultimate verities, ultimate truths. What is real? And that's the beauty of these teachings. It's here to show us what is real. And for people on the spiritual path for centuries in the Western tradition, religion has taught that if you want to be close to God, you have to have poverty, chastity, and obedience. And yeah, that's kind of a Kali Yuga way of looking at it. And Master and Swamiji have adapted those for our age and what is happening now. Instead of poverty, it's simplicity. Instead of chastity, it's moderation. Instead of obedience, cooperation. So the more that we can get into those ideas, I was looking around at my house the other day and thinking, I need to do a Swedish death sale. Have you heard of that? It's like doing the cleaning as though you were dead and just getting rid of everything and giving it away and just keeping the necessities, the simplicity of life. And I thought I could do my own yard sale. Just me. I could have a big yard sale. And that simplicity is so beautiful because when your life is cluttered, your mind is cluttered. And what we need to have is a calm mind. Because when we're really centered and really calm, we see a lot more. If we're spinning with thousands of thoughts in our mind, we miss a lot. A friend of mine used to say, because she was very busy, she would say, if I hear the birds, I know I'm in the now. There are so few birds these days. They are dropping by the thousands. There's so much glass, and they get tricked by the glass and hit it and die. We lose billions of birds every year. So appreciate them when you hear the bird sound. Bless them that they are fruitful and multiply, because that beautiful song of nature helps us to remember to just be in this moment. So simplicity, moderation, and cooperation. Think of those as sort of a basis for the spiritual life. No matter what we have, we can either be attached to it or not attached to it. There's a wonderful story about the great saint of the 19th century, Ramakrishna, and he was a favorite of Yogananda. And one day in the temple grounds there where Ramakrishna was a priest at Dakshineshwar, a sadhu came to visit Ramakrishna. And he only had his loincloth and his begging bowl, and he was covered in ashes, and he came to visit. And he was telling Ramakrishna everything that he had renounced, all of his spiritual practices. He was very dedicated. He'd been at this for decades. He was very sort of proud of what he was doing. And so Ramakrishna rang a bell and called for this lady who came to bring tea. She helped. She wasn't really a servant, but she was a helper. And so she came in, and she was dressed in a silk sari, and she had gold earrings and gold ankle bells and bangles on her hands. And she came in and she brought the tea, very lovingly placed it before them and went away. And this sadhu kept going on about all his renunciation. And finally, Ramakrishna just stopped him and said, you know, that young woman, though she's wearing silks and gold, has no attachment to them. She is more of a renunciate than you are, who only have your begging bowl and your loincloth and your ashes. So no matter what we have in life, detach the heart. You know, we get so many entanglements, so many desires and attachments to them. But it doesn't need to be that way. Be free in your heart. Swami used to say, at the end of every day, mentally build a bonfire. And everything that's become attached to you during the day, like burrs from walking in the forest, throw them into that bonfire. Just be free of that. One time a lady came to Swami and said, I was doing that exercise and my house burned down. And he said, I didn't tell you to burn everything, just throw them into the little bonfire. But we have to find a way to live more in our soul self. I love this reading and the beautiful whispers reading too. Find that center of the true self, the soul, and live there. I really think we have the cards stacked against us in this life. We have so many things like trying to keep the body going, but not be attached to it, not be identified with it. And then there's all these things that happen like hormones and illness that make you think of the body. But anyway, I'm going to talk to God about that when I get up there. But we have our being, we have our soul nature that is untouched by anything. In fact, I love this reading from the Bhagavad Gita. I just will share a little bit of it with you. The self is never born, nor does it perish. Existing once, it does not cease to be born again. It is birthless, eternal, changeless, ever itself. It is not slain when the body is slain. Just as an individual forsaking dilapidated raiment dons new clothing, so also the body-encased soul, relinquishing a decayed bodily habitation, enters into other new ones. The soul cannot be severed by weapons. This soul the fires cannot burn. This soul cannot be moistened by water. This soul cannot be dried up by breezes. The soul is everlasting, all-permeating, ever calm, immovable, and eternal. And it goes on, but it's just such a beautiful reminder that we are that being. We've lived probably millions and millions of lifetimes. And now in this human life, we have an amazing opportunity because it's only in the human life that we can become free. Let's not waste it. Let's not keep coming back. I keep thinking, oh God, to be a teenager again. Please spare me. We don't have to do that. We can practice freedom now. That's what I love about this spiritual path. We can imagine what it would feel like to be free. To look at your mind, and it's like a calm lake, not a ripple. To look at your heart and have it glowing with joy. We can have that now. Let's live in that experience. It's the difference, Swami said, between being and doing. In this life, there is no end to the doing. We're constantly being pulled out of ourselves, out of our center, because we have to do so many things. But if we can pull back in the midst of doing all those things and remember the soul, remember this passage, that immovable spirit that is our true nature. If we can live in that consciousness, then what happens is that we do things just as always. We accomplish things, we manifest things, but we're aware of the soul. We're living in the soul. And we can do things so much better. And the opposite is true too. If we're doing things with that consciousness, with that soul consciousness, when we sit to meditate, the meditation is better. The meditation is deeper. We can relax and rest in that meditation instead of just constantly having the chatter going, and then the 15 minutes is up and off we go doing again. The meditation doesn't matter. But if we can find God in action, then we will feel Him in meditation. So I just wanted to close by reading one more little beautiful phrase from the Bhagavad Gita. This is how we want to live in this world. As the lotus remains unsoiled by water, so lives the yogi who performs non-attached actions, surrendering them all to the infinite. He remains unbound, untangled in the senses. When we leave this world, we will have to let go of all of our books. We will have to let go of all of our collections, all of our china dishes, all of our cars and houses and everything that we've put so much energy into. We'll have to wave goodbye. And oftentimes, Swami tells a story about one lady who was very attached, very attached to her ring. And on her deathbed, she could feel life ebbing away. And one of her relatives tried to pry her ring off. She wasn't going to need it anymore, so she was going to take it with her. And the lady came back from the dead. What are you doing? That's my ring. Let's not go like that. Let's let it all go now. At least cut the strings that form the attachment. Be free inside. Nothing is ours. We come with nothing. We go with nothing. Live in that freedom.
Yesterday, some of us were at the Forest Hermitage for a silence retreat, and it was a lovely experience. And the only problem with it was that it was too short, in my humble opinion, because we've got a lot happening, as Nirmala was pointing out. But one thing struck me very powerfully by the end of the day, that silence is how we can begin to touch, and this segues to what Nirmala was saying about mental chatter. You know, we can live in a world of kind of mental turmoil, mental commotion, augmented by all sorts of external stimuli, you know, from radios to TVs to internet to even just driving down the road. I was driving down Sunrise Boulevard recently, and I'm just noodling along. I mean, you see various billboards or little signs or little whatever. You know, there's the famous no barking. Somebody changed the P into a B, put a little dog next to it. No barking in this area. But the one that really struck me was, I don't know why this caught my attention, but I'm just driving along and there's just this little box, about the size of a bumper sticker. It says seamless gutters, and then there's a phone number underneath it. And it's just like, seamless gutters. What a wonderful thing, seamless gutters. Anyway, I mean, but there is just endless, how many things come at us from different directions. And it's lovely down there, but it's also grassy and full of little stickers. And I came back with my pants legs just covered with stickers, almost all the way up to my knees. And then I spent, a good amount of time picking the little stickers off so that I didn't get them all stuck to the chair in meditation in the afternoon. But, that's a little bit like what Nirmala was saying about the exercise. Don't burn the house down. The bonfire can be mental. But, stuff gets stuck to us without us necessarily even intending so. It just happens. We're just swirling around through life and we run into stuff and it sticks. And we aren't necessarily aware of it. And it helps to become aware of it. It helps to notice when we're attached to something. And I'll tell a story that happened for us in India. And it struck me in particular. And I think this was one of the little ways that Swamiji helped to train us. So it happened that, I'll just kind of set the stage. We were just getting started in India. We had formed a legal organization some years before, and that was the vehicle, you can say, that we were operating under. Well, the man who had formed it was liable for anything that we did because he was the trustee of that organization. And he was very concerned about what we were doing. And Swamiji, in his enthusiastic way, was spreading out in all kinds of directions and, doing teachings and creating websites. And anyway, at a certain point, this man just got very, very concerned because he thought, this is not going to end well for me because this Swami is way too exuberant and way too forward-thinking and expansive in his ideals, and we have to know where every rupee is coming from and where every rupee is going. A few paltry rupees. Anybody remember that from the reading? Well, anyway, at a certain point, he had about $12,000 in the checking account of this legal entity, Ananda Sangha Trust, I think it was called at the time. Anyway, he said, no money comes in and no money goes out until I understand exactly what we're doing and where it's coming from and what we're going to do about it and etc. And so, you can imagine, this was the immovable object about to encounter the irresistible force. And Swamiji wrote a letter to him. I'll never forget this letter. It was just marvelous. And it was so sweet because he said he had known this man for 45 years or something. Since the late 1950s, they became friends. And he said, I perceive that it seems that money is interrupting our friendship. Keep the money. I would rather have our friendship unimpeded. And I remember going, whoa, 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 because I was responsible for paying the bills and making sure that we could make the rent next month, and $12,000 was a lot of money. I mean, I was way out of my comfort zone in terms of what we were responsible for and the trajectory of what was involved. And I just remember thinking, hey, that's all very well, isn't it? But, and as it happened, Swami knew perfectly well that that we had the momentum, we had the right flow, it was all going to work out. And he also knew this man well enough to know that you could not light a fire under him more effectively than by just saying, no, just keep the money. Because then his pride got involved, and it was like, wait a minute, you're saying that I want your money? I don't want your money. I mean, and later on he came for tea, the end of the tea, in Swami's presence. He goes to his purse or bag or whatever, and he brings out this little bundle in a paper bag, little solid, like a big loaf of bread. And he presents this to me. That was our $12,000, and that was how he could figure out to free it up from his account, and we ended up moving on and changing, creating our own legal entity later on. But that was his way of untangling that, which I think Swami knew very well would happen in due course, and it did. It probably took 6 months or a year for that to come, but it did come in its own way and its own time. And that, to me, is a message for all of us that the ego wants it right now. I want the ice cream cone now, Mom. I don't want to wait till after my dinner. Or I don't, all of the little things that we get stuck on. It's like, no, I want it now. And remember from the reading, anything that the ego relinquishes into cosmic consciousness, and into soul consciousness, is reclaimed forever in cosmic consciousness. The only question is time. Time is involved for us who are caught in the delusion, the illusion of time. So we think, oh, well, it'll never happen. Oh, yes, it will. And it'll happen more quickly. And I think Swamiji could see this in that particular example. He could see that the best way to untangle this is not to get more entangled in it. You know, we realize that you're entering a culture that you don't know very well how to sort of navigate. Swamiji's way of navigating was to get up to about 35,000 feet and fly over a lot of it. Because trying to muck your way through the jungle is kind of like trying to pull that piano, an image that I have frequently used and thought, you know, it's hard to pull a piano through a jungle. You know, you either have to take a bulldozer ahead of the piano or something else. It's like it doesn't work very well. And we are trying to work our way through ego, and we have to either burn it down or rise above it. And we are invited to do either or both. In the example of the bonfire, sure, make a bonfire. You know, those of you who were at the Forest Hermitage yesterday might have seen the burn piles that we have created, one of which is almost as tall as the roof of this building. I mean, it's big. And when it goes off, it's going to be impressive. But there's just a lot of work to be done. And it's the same for us. Jyotish once, many years ago, had a dream of Swamiji and Master. And he was a little concerned because he was realizing that in the dream he was shoveling this very sticky pile of like asphalt, and you know, one shovel at a time he was trying to move it out of the way. And he thought, oh my God, this is going to take forever. But then he heard something, you know, kind of in the distance, and he sort of started to walk around this gigantic mound of stuff that he was dealing with. And he saw Master driving one of these gigantic loaders that, you know, the bucket that holds yards of stuff. And he was driving into the pile and hoisting this up and moving it out of the way. And he had this big smile on his face. And we have to realize that there is that grace in our lives. If and to the extent that we attract it, invite it, nurture it in our lives, then we have a blessing. It may be on the other side of the pile. We may not know that it's operating, but by golly, it is. And so let us remember that. The ego is a way station. This is from last week's reading, a way station on the spiritual journey. It's helpful up to a point, and then it's an obstacle. And let's transcend it by rising above it in the bliss. You know, I thought of this image yesterday. Just try this on for size. Your body is the size of this planet. You are as large as this planet, and everything that lives on, above, within this planet is yours. It's part of your life. Feel that you are that entirety. And now, by comparison, think, so how important is my little life in all of that? All the drama and commotion of my little life. By comparison, it's just this one little spark. It's just this one little thing. Yes, in itself, it does have a degree of importance, but it's in relation to this cosmic infinity that is our true nature. Let's embrace that divine potential.
Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit those who thirst for righteousness, for they shall be satisfied. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, they shall be called the children of God. Blessed those reviled for righteousness' sake,